Hi everyone, this is Balázs from RacingBrick. You could already see this machine in one of my previous videos. It's the xTool M1, a 2-in-1 blade cutter and desktop laser machine. I first used the blade cutter function and made some cool stickers for my LEGO sets and also some minifigure capes. You can watch that video by clicking on the link in the top right corner. Before we begin, as always, a quick disclaimer. This isn't a full product review video and I'm not an expert giving my opinion on the product. I'm showing you my journey with various tools and gadgets as I discover their functions and explore how they can be used in the world of the LEGO hobby. Today, I'll be testing out the M1's other feature, the laser engraver. I know you guys had safety concerns after using an open frame laser cutter previously, and I totally understand. Safety is very important to me, so I was happy when xTool reached out to me with this machine. It's a fully enclosed laser cutter, and as such it has an FDA certified Class 1 safety rating. But that's not all, since cutting or engraving stuff with the laser still comes with potentially nasty fumes. Here's another product from xTool, the Smoke Purifier. This thing also comes in a hefty box that contains all the accessories and the device itself. So here is the Smoke Purifier itself and all the accessories. Here is what we get with the device. I guess the filter package is in the machine itself. Let's take a look at it. Yes, here they are. At first I thought this was some sort of packaging, but apparently it's one of the filters itself. So this is the pre-filter on top, we have a spare of this, then comes the HEPA filter, and the biggest one is the main filter with activated carbon in it. Let's put everything back together and then we can put it next to the M1. We are in my little workshop now. This is where I want to run these two units. I skipped the assembly part, maybe that's not so interesting to you, so here is my setup. This is the M1, it has an exhaust on the back, the pipe is connected there with this clamp and runs to the top of the smoke purifier. There is another pipe attached there that goes to my window up here. I had this foam insert from one of my big printer boxes, measured the window, cut it to the right size and it fits perfectly. I also cut a hole in the middle and printed a tube that is the same diameter as the exhaust on the smoke purifier. Yes, that's a pretty awesome printer by the way, I will show you in a separate video. So I attach the tube and that's it. Here's how it works. When I start a job on the M1, I turn on the smoke purifier, which filters anything nasty and the air goes out of my window. Now it's time to fire up the laser. I use the same xTool Creative Space application as before, and the first subject is this metal dog tag that came with the machine. I asked my daughter what I should engrave on it since it will be for one of her toys. We have to set the parameters in the app, it's the laser flat option. There is a special material prepared for this bone dog tag that sets the power and speed. I measured the thickness manually as a precaution and then pressed go. There's a framing process first that shows you the limit of the engraving area to make sure it's really in the right place, and then we can finally engrave. We can't see much of the process through the protective cover and that's just fine. A few minutes later, here's the final result. I think it looks really great. I wanted to do some more manual power tests, so I chose this bar from a packaging. First, let's try something really simple, for example a star with pretty low settings. The device has an auto measure function for the objects, which is very handy. It can engrave things up to 60 mm thick by default. For anything beyond that, you will need to remove the base plate and possibly buy the separately sold razor base. As you can see, this task is done very quickly and the result looks pretty good. Now let's look at something more complicated, namely the RacingBrick logo. This one will take more time here. I have to make sure to have the air filter on as well, and about 10 minutes later you will see the final result. Okay, so far these things haven't had much to do with LEGO. Here is one of the large plates that are usually used as a plug for the UCS sets. I already told you that I don't really want to engrave directly on LEGO parts because burning ABS releases some nasty fumes, so I'm just doing a quick test with really very low settings with only 1% of power. The process itself is pretty quick, there's not much to see of the engraving itself since the power is very low, and thanks to that and the air filter, I don't smell anything here either. So, here is the final result. I think it looks awesome, everything is super sharp. I wish I could recommend this setup for engraving LEGO parts, but since I'm not an expert, I can't do that. You can find the technical parameters of the Air Purifier link below, so if any of you have experience with lasers and ABS, please check if this amount of filtration is sufficient for such work and let us know in the comments. But I didn't really want to admit defeat with LEGO laser engraving, so I came up with something else. What if I don't engrave on the part itself, but I use the laser to cut something that is attached to the LEGO pieces? What I want to do is masking. I use some kind of tape as a mask on a LEGO piece, cut a pattern in the mask with the laser, and then paint the LEGO piece. Remember the Blackton Cruiser that was recently released? Here's the original set with a printed part on the front, and here's the new edition that only has a sticker there. How about if we could create a painted piece instead of this one? Here's how to do it. Since this part is not flat, I made a support using another similar piece and a few extra Lego elements, which I will wrap with this packing tape. It is very thin. Based on my testing, it takes very little laser power to cut it, unlike regular masking tape. I measured the thickness of the assembly manually and it's only 14mm, which is below the 16mm limit. Here is the design I created with the Blacktron logo and the outline of the part. I still need to align it properly. Then I turn off the output for the outline, as it's only for positioning, and we can start the process. There's just a few lines, so the machine is done quickly, and here is the final result. The tape is cut properly. Now it's time to remove the pieces. This process is really not easy with the camera in front of my head, so please excuse me for not filming everything. The tape pieces came off just fine. Now it's time to completely wrap my assembly with the packing tape, because I want to paint the thing, and at the end there should be only the logo in yellow. I bought this kind of acrylic paint for models, but should also work for Lego parts. So, this is the part I'm least comfortable with. I've never spray painted anything in my life, so forgive me if the result will be anything but pretty. This is just a proof of concept. I'm sure it can be made much nicer. I let it dry for some time, and now comes the moment of truth. I carefully rub these things, so it's a challenge to remove everything. So, here is the main part. I try to remove the tape carefully, and sorry to be out of focus. I had to leave the corner of the middle part off camera so I could see what I was doing, and here is the end result. Yes, it's not quite even, but it's painted and I think as a proof of concept it works quite well. Here is the original piece and the one with the sticker. I think the middle piece can have the best of both worlds. So, it's definitely possible to laser cut masks and paint different things on Lego pieces. Of course, that doesn't apply to colorful pictures or anything like that, but for labels, logos, or even more complex monochrome designs, it can definitely work. I think the xTool M1 is a very useful device that has helped me very reliably in all these experiments. I still think it's probably too much considering the capabilities and price if you are only going to use it for Lego, but if you can justify buying it for other tasks, it can be very useful for Lego customization as well. Let me know your thoughts, folks, in the comments section. If you like this video, then please give it a thumbs up, and don't forget to subscribe with notifications as more exciting Lego videos are coming soon. See you next time, bye bye.